Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to Intuition on Tap. I'm your host, Heidi, intuitive mentor, empath whisperer, and your slightly psychic sidekick, here to help you remember your power, reconnect to your knowing, and live a wildly guided life. Today's episode is called Spirit Guides Aren't Your Parents, and yes, we are going there. This one is part truth bomb, part soul hug, and a whole lot of wait, have I been doing that? So grab a cup of something sacred or pop in those AirPods and let's dive in. So let's start at the beginning. What even are spirit guides? Starting with the basics, spirit guides are often seen as non physical beings who support your soul's evolution. So the, I guess, mass consensus is that spirit guides are with you from birth. Some show up for reasons, some show up for seasons, and others appear in pivotal moments. These can be like a breakup, a rebirth, or during that wild Kundalini awakening that took you by surprise in the Coles car park. They don't control you, they don't boss you around, and they definitely don't have time to micromanage your daily to-do list, no matter what other spiritual teachers might tell you. So they are here to guide, but they are not here to parent. So this leads us into the projection trap. Here's where it gets tender. Most of us, especially if we've grown up with dysfunctional family dynamics, unconsciously project those same dynamics onto our so-called spirit team. So if your parents were controlling, you might feel like your guides are punishing you when things don't go right. If you grew up being dismissed or not being believed, you might doubt your guidance even when it's crystal clear. And if your caregivers were emotionally unavailable, guess what? You might believe your team has gone silent or has left you or that you are now on your own. So this isn't spiritual failure. This is unhealed relational trauma showing up in your spiritual space and your spiritual practice. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just about awareness. So how can we heal it? And how can we reconnect to real guidance? So how do you shift this? Well, firstly, you start by separating the energy of control from the frequency of guidance. So I want you to think about that for a few moments, and I'm going to repeat it. Separate the energy of control from the frequency of guidance. So here's a 3-step soul reconnection ritual that I teach in my courses. So number 1, you can say it out loud. Spirit, I release the projection of parental energy onto you, and I choose to see you as my wise, loving, neutral guidance. Number 2, get still and receive. Use your breath to soften, light a candle, ask, what do you want me to feel right now, but not fix? And the third is to rebuild trust slowly. So if it's okay if it feels awkward because you're repatterning your relationship with your higher support. So let your so-called spirit guides show you that they're safe, calm, and consistent. You're not crazy. You're healing. Now, this is the part of the podcast where I'm going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works. If you've worked with me before and read any of my books, you will know that I have a very unique and perhaps different perspective on what the rest of the, I guess, the spiritual industry calls or refers to as spirit guides. I differ in that I don't see spirit guides as separate from us, but that they are soul extensions of you. So now here's a twist that might expand your perspective. They're not separate. Your spirit guides aren't separate from you. They're not random cosmic assistants assigned to your case file in the sky, right? They are you. They are an energetic extensions of your higher self. And they are, and this is, I think, where a lot of people get confused or twisted up, particularly the new ages. The higher aspects of yourself are filtered through archetypes, right? They're filtered through frequencies and even personalities that your human self can more easily interact with. That doesn't mean that they are a separate entity to your higher consciousness. And in fact, I discourage people from working with separate entities to their higher self. But we can talk about that in another podcast. At the moment, though, we're going to continue to focus on the messaging of just imagine that your higher self or your spirit guides are an extension of your higher self, okay? So think of it this way. If your higher self is a vast, multidimensional, and deeply wise presence, it can be difficult for your humanness to be able to understand, conceptualize that, and incorporate that in your day to day life. Your higher self also holds the blueprint for your life purpose, your soul agreements, your intuitive gifts and skills. But trying to access that all at once for us mere mortals, it can be overwhelming to our limited human understanding. And when I say limited human understanding, I'm not negging us. I'm not like downplaying how exquisite human beings are, but comparative to the vastness of the expanse of your consciousness, compared to you living your human experience, going to your day job, wrangling your children, dealing with relationships, clearing out your trauma, it can be difficult to resonate, associate, and understand the vastness of who you actually are. So when we use the filtering process through archetypes and frequencies or personalities, it makes it much easier for our human selves to be able to relate to those aspects. And so we feel more comfortable with it. I hope that makes sense to you. But think of it like this. Your spirit team is like the accessible interface, all right, of your higher self. It's the soul-led support squad that translates higher wisdom into symbols, nudges, synchronicities, and gut feelings that actually make sense in daily life. So your spirit team is an extension and, in fact, I guess you could say an expression of the higher aspects of yourself. They're not here to replace your sovereignty. They're here to mirror the part of you that already knows. So next time that you're dialoguing with your so-called spirit guides, or maybe you want to reframe that, maybe you want to use another term so you can ensure that you're not getting it mixed up with the, I guess, more mainstream new age concepts of what spirit guides are, but that you're actually having a conversation with your own expanded self, your inner mystic, your future self, your soul aspect. And that's why it's so important, getting back to the beginning, to clean up the projections that we have. Because when you truly remember that guidance is coming from the wisest part of you, you stop second guessing and you stop outsourcing your truth and your power. And you start leading your life like the powerful, intuitive being you already are. So your spirit team don't parent you. They're not going to punish you. You're not going to get in trouble. They don't withdraw their contact, attention, and awareness from you if you've perceived that you've done something naughty or bad or wrong. All right. So that's what I'm talking about when I mean your spirit guides are not your parents. So if this sparked something in you, maybe a reframe, a light bulb moment, or even a sense of relief, I invite you to take a moment today to journal with your spirit team. Ask that higher aspect of yourself, what part of my higher self are you reflecting back to me? So if you, again, resonate with things like archetypes or particular personalities, maybe that makes it more comfortable for you to relate to those higher aspects of yourself. And you can directly ask that expression as your spirit team and relate to them on that level, deepening and building the relationship. You might be surprised what actually comes through if you do this. So let's look at what spiritual guidance actually feels like. And I want to bust a myth here because guidance doesn't always arrive as booming voices or what I used to call the voice of God or, technicolor visions. Although it might, but that's not necessarily what you're going to be receiving on the day to day. More often, it's a subtle nudge, it's a shift in your body, it's an inner yes. It feels clear, it doesn't feel forced, it feels calm, it feels like it is improving your overall experience or your decision making process rather than confusing it. All right. So it adds clarity and relieves confusion. So if it's yelling, that's probably trauma, right? Not intuition. And we've talked about this in previous podcasts about how you can have a traumatic response based on your own history, your upbringing, and actually where your nervous system regulation is at any given moment. But if it's loving, grounded, and slightly annoying because it asks you to grow, well, that's more likely to be your spirit team, aka your higher self. So let's recap. Spirit guides or spirit team equal your higher self guides. They are not fixers, they are supports, and they are an extension and an expression of you. Projection is normal, that we project, these personalities onto these aspects of ourselves, but it doesn't have to be permanent. I always encourage my students and the people that work with me is to start where you're at. And if you've kind of really bought into that whole new age concept that spirit guides are completely separate to you and they're, divine entities, that's fine. But what I would invite you to also do is to entertain the concept that these wise higher aspects that you're receiving guidance from may simply just be an expression of your higher self. You're allowed to rebuild your relationship with spirit on your own terms. And I really encourage you and invite you to remember that. Even if something that I say to you doesn't resonate, that's fine. I ask you not to throw it away impulsively, but just place it to the side and see if you might want to revisit it or come back to it in the future, just to see if it still gives you that same reaction or response. Because you don't need to be perfect to be guided. You just need to be open to the concept that you already have the wisdom within you and you already have access to the wisdom that you are seeking. Like I said, if it helps you to put a name or a personality onto that aspect, then do that. But knowing and clearly intending and understanding that that is just an expression, another expression of you. So if this episode has stirred something in you, I do invite you to share it with someone you love. And if you want to go deeper into this work, I do encourage you to go onto my website, Intuition Co., and check out the intuition-based courses that you'll find there, particularly the Intuition Toolkit. That's a little mini course. It's a great place to start. Or you can join me on Instagram at Miss Heidi Jane for weekly downloads. But thanks for letting me be in your ears today. And as always, your intuition is never off. Sometimes it's just waiting for you to listen. And I will see you next time.